If this is your first time to Coming Back to Love, the podcast, welcome. We're so glad you found us. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Either way, you're not here by accident. I'm your host, Karen Walker-Cohn, a wife, a mom, entrepreneur, friend, and dreamer who is ready to step into more of who I am created to be. I am committed to personal transformation for global impact. Now, this podcast may be very different from others. Our guests don't come with a topic or agenda. They come open and ready to receive and deliver the message that's meant for you. You will also notice our podcast is not overly produced. This is on purpose. Our hope is we will inspire you to step into who you're created to be, regardless of how it may look. Take inspired action on that book, business, relationship, and yes, podcast, or whatever it is on your heart. In my experience, my mess usually ends up being my message. I encourage you to approach our time today with a beginner's mindset and with openness to receive what is meant for you. Andrea Seiler, pen name Andrea, is a writer, an indie author, a poet, and book illustrator, helping people find and feel a sense of belonging by simply witnessing creative and courageous self-expression. Andrea is ready to take on more speaking engagements and building relationships with people sharing their stories. This is how we were able to connect. Andrea watched a podcast with fellow poet and author John Rodell and reached out to me. I am so blessed to know CBTL, the podcast, is connecting me to people and perspectives I may not otherwise hear. Andrea's book, A Poet's Playground, is published and available for a unique audience. Those on a healing journey and those who want to witness what healing looks like in raw and real time. Andrea allows herself to be fully authentic, courageously vulnerable, and brave enough to heal out loud. Grab her free chapter at www.cheydrea.com/book. In our conversation, Andrea shares candidly about deconstructing her childhood trauma and life experiences to get to where she is today. So settle in, grab a beverage and your notebook or journal for all the wisdom nuggets you will learn from Andrea Seiler. Andrea, when you hear the title of this podcast, Coming Back to Love, Inspiring Stories on Shifting Perspectives, what story or experience from your life comes to mind?
That gonna refer to a recent experience where I went through a dark night of the soul, and I didn't even know that was a thing until I found out it was. So it's also known as an existential crisis. And so once it was a 2.5 year dark night of the soul, I had to unravel a lot of my life experiences, my childhood trauma, my belief systems, to really find out who I truly was. And once I came out of that, let me just back up. Being in that dark place, I fell out of love with everyone, and it was very scary. And so coming out of that, I had to choose to save my own life. And then I had to choose love again, which I did know how to love very well. I carried a childlike love in me. I loved everyone very much. I had this big, fast love for people, for earth, for children, for humanity. But then once I was going through this existential crisis, losing that love and losing hope for life was scary to me, and I wasn't sure if I could make it back. And so once I did come out of that, it was partially, well, it was a choice. It was a choice to say, I got to get back to that love I once knew. And so I'm in the process now of redefining what coming back to love means for me, so that I can get back to that childlike love.
Yeah. So where you say you're in the process of it, can you share a little bit about that process? Like, where, I mean, I don't even know, like, I was going to say, where in that process are you? And do you even know?
So I wrote this little piece to help me put this together. So I wrote, once we find that hope, a rebirth happens. Because I lost all hope in that dark place. And so then when I found hope, a rebirth happened. And then a healing began. So the healing begins. And healing isn't just something one and done.
Right.
Right? It's a process. Especially as you are, redefining things, redefining who am I?
Yeah.
And what do I want in my life? And where do I find meaning? And where do I find purpose? So when healing happens, coming back to love becomes a choice of deep listening, curiosity to understand the other, non-judgment, deep presence, and a newfound compassion towards oneself and humanity.
Wow.
And I always thought of myself as that person. I always was deeply present with people. I always felt I had compassion and non-judgment. I felt huge love for people. But as I examined my wounds through my poetry and through writing, I didn't have it as much as I thought I did. I didn't even know what self-compassion was. So I really couldn't have compassion for other people in the way that I thought I did, because I didn't have it for myself. So how could I really have it for other people?
Right.
I wasn't loving myself properly. So how could I love other people, if I couldn't really love myself? I was judging myself, hating myself, critiquing myself, perfecting myself. So the truth was, I really was expecting that of other people. So
Right.
I thought I loved people, and the people that I did love unconditionally were my children.
Right.
That was easy. That was easy for me. But so, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It does. You know what? I relate to that, coming from a place of, my core belief system being I'm not enough. So, I judged everything. From that lens, from that place of not enough. So I got into relationships that would prove I'm not enough. I got, like, I said things about myself that like I had this core belief, and I was constantly saying, doing, thinking things, gathering evidence, I call it, to prove that, yeah, this core belief is correct. I am not enough. See, I can point to this, I can point to that. See? And so I relate to you from that place. I relate to exactly what it is you're saying. If I don't think I'm enough, as much as same thing, loving my kids, that part's easy. And I was saying to them, I was looking for all the places that was not enough in them as well. So, change this part, or dress this way, or, I remember my son saying to me when oh gosh, I think he might have been 6 years old, and we were getting ready to go to church. And he said to me, Mom, why do I have to look so perfect all the time? Like, why do I have to look so perfect? That hit my heart. And I was like, no, you don't have to, like, it just, I just like, why do it? And I still didn't know at that time, but I just remember that his question really hit my heart.
And during this dark night, I keep calling it dark night. So, as I unraveled, I was trying to unravel all of my beliefs, all of my experiences. I learned that a lot of that, which was surprising to me, a lot of it came from religion. And so I had to deconstruct my entire religious belief system. And I was a very loving, quiet, sort of just supportive, very active religious person, but I wasn't like, I think what they call an apologist. I was just a happy, joyful, how can I serve religious person on fire for Jesus. And then my deconstruction started about 15 years ago when I was working through a lot of physical pain that was trauma in my body that I didn't know. And so fast forward, I realized that a lot of these wounded beliefs I had about myself as a woman and the roles that I was playing as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a member of society had to do with the roles that were placed on me in my religious beliefs. So I had to just start of all of that and start from scratch and figure out what are my roles and what do I need to be doing. And it determined that I don't need to be playing any roles. The only role that I need to play is the role of loving myself and finding compassion for myself so that I can do the same for other people.
Yeah, so good. Well, I relate to you so much, so much. I'm also in that process, you deconstructing it just is really that's part of my coming back to love. That's part of why this podcast even exists. So I appreciate that. And is that part of why this book, The Poet's Playground, exists?
Well, the way it came about was I was in so much pain, and I started writing, and then the writing started, then the pain showed up, and then the pain turned into a lot of like that darkness of just what's going on. Why is my writing? And I said this on other podcasts. I've said this out loud many times, but my inner child came out and said, "You need to get out of the way. I have some stuff I want to say." And so that's how the poetry started, because my pain was so heavy and so ugly to me, because what I was writing didn't seem okay for me to write. I was saying things that I had felt, that I was carrying in my body, that I wasn't speaking, that I wasn't giving words to, that I wasn't giving my voice to. I was just holding this pain, and it was ruminating in my body, and it was manifesting in physical ailments. I was diagnosed with all these conditions, but I didn't ever subscribe to the allopathic healthcare system. I just kept exercising and taking care of my health, and then found myself in a yoga studio, and I got 3 certifications, and I was teaching yoga. And I have a background in sports medicine as well, so it was all physical. I'm going to just take care of myself physically. So then I start writing, and then my voice comes out. I'm like, oh, this is what they're talking about with the throat chakra. Using your voice. And it looked ugly to me. It didn't seem okay for me to say these things. And so and in order for me to digest my words, I had to extract the mess of my words into little pieces or excerpts, which then just intuitively and organically turned into poetry. And so now as I go down that poetry life, because I did a complete pivot, I threw in the towel to my job, my career, which it wasn't really a career. It was more of a save a dollar or a service. I was just giving myself away. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was just giving myself away. But so I decided I'm going to become a full-time writer, poet, artist. And now I totally understand poets. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're expressing themselves.
Right.
It's a daily act of self-expression. And man, does it feel good, because you can just say what's in your body, in your heart, in your bones, in your blood. You're just saying it. You're feeling it. You're expressing it. That makes us human.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. The way you express it in this book is like bravery, courage, authenticity. Those are the words that immediately come to mind from the first page that I read. And so thank you for putting this out there, because I do understand that it wasn't necessarily going to be in these pages.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how far in the book you've gotten, but if you've made it to the part where I wrote to my mother and father, dear father.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard for me to look back at that sometimes and see that, but I'm estranged from both of my parents. I didn't even have parents, so I don't even know why I say that. I was raised only by my mom. And I'm a second generation immigrant. So her and her family came over here from the war, post-war. And so there was, and my grandfather was in the war. So there was a lot of alcoholism and poverty. As anyone knows, or most people, not most people, but some people know that in a family with poverty, post-war trauma, and alcoholism, nothing good can trickle down from that into the generations that come. And so I was a child of that, and without a father. I ran the streets a lot. I did not have emotional or physical support. In a lot of ways, there was just a lot of stuff that went on. And so that was where my writing started, because I was forcing myself to face that, and it was showing up in my relationships. I've been married for 30 years this year. My husband also brought his own trauma to the table.
Yeah.
And we were just replaying and reenacting what we learned in our childhoods as we tried to navigate this relationship. And the truth is, we didn't know any better. And we were in survival mode. We had kids to raise. We were working. We were trying to just survive. And so once it all came to a head, and I just started healing, I said, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna suffer as long as I need to suffer to get through whatever needs to go on here, and you can join me or not. And so yeah, we're on the other side of that. And to almost lose a marriage over somewhat healing is something in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't make it through that.
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
Coming, I know exactly what you're saying, where you think like, I used to say, with my ex, is that I'm still kind of figuring out because he's not my anything. How do I, I used to say that my prayer was, oh God, change him. Oh God, change him. And I was just sharing this with someone earlier today. And when I heard back in my spirit, no, you get to change. Let's change you. And I started healing, and I started shifting, and in my mind, I was so excited about it, because, our marriage is we're going to get to, like, I'm going to shift. And that's the expectation I had in my mind. We're going to draw closer. And in fact, it just, I came home one day and he was gone. So, yeah, I understand that. And I'm at a place now where I'm thankful, because I've stepped into this new relationship and everything that I've ever wanted. So I get that. I appreciate you saying that.
Ride that wave with you, and it's a harsh wave.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that even personal development, character development, all this, the inner child work, all this is why I have found that my circle has shrunk.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that have, oh yeah, no, I don't want anything
Yeah.
to do with this.
Yeah.
You know, like you've shifted, you've changed. And then there's a lot of people also that are, you've shifted, you've changed, and
Yeah.
celebrating with you.
Yeah.
So doing the work, whatever that the work ends up being for you, for me, for anyone listening, it's going to shift the people that come in and out of your life. And that's a scary thing. It can be a scary thing. I know it was for me, because I'm like, oh, uh, how is that going to shift our relationship? Even the work that I've been doing lately in the last year and a half, because I've had that experience in a past relationship. Oh my gosh, if I keep growing, that could potentially wreck. Like, I brought that old stuff from the past into my relationship now. That could wreck the relationship I have with my husband now.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly looking inward and fighting that. Thank God he's like, nope, I'm in this. I'm riding this wave. Like you said, I'm riding this wave with you, and we're doing this together. And so I feel like I have a level of security that I never had before. And the fact that you guys, like you said, 30 years, he's riding that wave with you. How, gosh, the impact that must have on you two together, on your marriage, on your children. Yeah, share about that.
Yeah, it's been interesting because we had there's a lot of good memories when we were raising our kids. You know, I had the typical traditional family where my husband was gone a lot. I did have a career, but this is common. I had a career, he had a career. I gave mine up because somebody had to take care of the kids. And it was me, and because I'm the woman. And I know that's a strong statement, but I wanted to be present for them, and I didn't want them to be harmed due to my lack of presence. And also I didn't want to repeat patterns. So we moved away. And so really my intuition 20 years ago when we moved away from home and across the country was, and I write about that in my book. I don't know if you've, I don't even know what page that is, but it's a very powerful page. And I'm like, I gotta start over with a clean slate. So we had some really good times with our kids. There was a lot, but you know, we were in survival mode.
Yeah.
And then we deconstructed as a family. Because at first, you know, we were going to church, I was homeschooling, you know, we had all the religious t-shirts, you know, we were all, and then we deconstructed as a family. Now, fast forward, you know, my son's 27, my daughter's 22. They have their significant others that they're dating. And our focus right now is to keep our family intact by having honest conversations, having hard conversations. And I think I said this recently, if anyone's not good, having a hard time, struggling, none of us are good. We all need to get skin in the game.
Yeah.
You know, we need to pay attention to each other. We need to invest time into each other. We need to support each other, not gaslight each other and deny each other's daily experiences and be cruel to each other. There's no room for that in this group. And we're not perfect, but that's where we're at now. That's my goal. And I have and that's always been my goal, but that's my deepest core passion, is to create what it means to be a family that is not just going through life, surviving, following the rules, following the systems,
Right.
feeling the roles, but just a family that says, I'm here and I got you. And that we carve out time, energy, curiosity, all the things that we need to do in our relationships for each other,
Yeah.
and support each other. So, and there's a lot less non-judgment for each other. And like you said with your son, I don't care if my kids are perfect. I don't want them to be perfect. Down to
Yeah.
the craziest things, like, should I wear this to the restaurant? Should I say this? Wear what you want.
Right.
Say what you want. Do
Right.
what you want. Not be unkind to people, but just, I
Right.
love you no matter what.
Yeah.
My daughter and I call each other, how greasy is your hair? I want to go, well, mine's pretty greasy. You want to go? Yeah, go. Not, well, you should really fix that, or you should really change that.
Right.
And my husband and I are working really hard on our relationship right now. The new version of our relationship, the relationship between two people, not mom and
Right.
dad and
Roles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two between two roles. Yeah. I like that. Wow. That's so good, Andrea. Oh my goodness. So if you could leave the listeners with one message today, what would it be?
Wow. Love yourself. I know that's such a common statement, but use your voice. Be honest. Be authentic. I used to think authenticity was honesty, just like speaking and saying whatever on your mind. That
Right.
authenticity.
Right.
And I was authentic a lot, but now I know after all this healing that authenticity is being 100% yourself. Believe what you believe, feel what you feel, say what needs to be said. And if you walk into a room and you feel like you don't belong there because people aren't accepting you of who you are, turn around and walk out. Because for every time you lose someone by being your authentic self, you're gaining your self-worth. You're gaining, and you can fill in the blanks for me if you want to.
Well, for me, it was confidence.
Yeah.
Trust for myself.
Yeah.
Like all those things.
Self-trust, self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that, and I didn't realize that. I was shrinking and just kind of navigating, I'll say, when I go into this room, I'll say that. And when I'll go into this room, I'll be that. And I'll be quiet over here, and it's like, no, I'm just going to work. And that's my goal too. Besides that, all the family stuff is I want to be absolutely authentic in every way, shape, or form. And just not worry about if I'm going to lose someone, because
Agreed.
yeah, and that's new for me.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. And I think it's probably something that we really connected on and something that attracted us to one another. Yeah, I love how and your authenticity just shines through in this book. And I'm going to bring this up because I'm feeling it. And what I thought authenticity was is just like, blah, here's all my junk and stuff, and let me just spew that all over you. So that is not authenticity. Authenticity, the root of authenticity from my perspective, is love. And it comes from a place of love, kindness. So if it's not helpful for me to say something, even though I'm feeling like, oh, I really want to say that, you still get to judge. I still get to judge. Is this helpful? Is this me spewing? Is this coming from ego? Or is this real authenticity? And I'm learning how to discern that. I'm learning about myself because I'm in a new place in my life and I see things with fresh eyes. And there's a lot of things that I used to say and call it authentic that didn't need to be said. It was just unkind. It's really what it was, just unkind, and I thought it was authenticity. So I'm saying that I'm realizing you had mentioned this earlier about, you said it a couple times about your voice, finding your voice. This is something that is so important to me. And you had brought up the throat chakra. Even now, Andrea, I have this lump in my throat because this is a new thing for me to find my voice. And even my body, you had talked about the physicality of, these emotions that you hold on to, and which end up being diagnosed as some type of, generally mine has been around autoimmune. And we hold on, or I hold on to these emotions. And even now, I just want to share with the listeners, even now as I'm speaking, I have this lump in my throat. And you see me on camera drinking water. I feel like dry here. My body is still getting used to finding my voice. It is now like I'm reprogramming my thoughts, and it's reprogramming my body. And I'm so excited for the time where and I don't know if it's ever going to come, where this lump is not there, or I don't have to overcome that. So I am really curious about what you were sharing about the words came out on the page, and this inner child work. What shifts have you seen in the physical?
Well, because I started being a chronic fitness person at age 17. And so I have had, and without going through a timeline, and I've taken care of myself nutritionally because of what I went to school for and stuff. But where my body was failing was I had a pelvic floor collapse in my mid 30s. And when I started yoga, I learned that's a mother wound because it's in the pelvis. But then the healthcare system diagnosed me with all these things like a thyroid disorder and depression and anxiety and all these things, which I dismissed and then just exercised myself through them. But the grief, the trauma and the wounds that I was carrying from my childhood it manifested into depression, and I had a lot of depression that I was hiding, and I wasn't speaking on it because, one, I believed that there was something wrong with me. And my family didn't need to believe there was something wrong with me, because if I would speak on my depression, it was gaslit. It was denied. It was not allowed. You don't speak on your pain. You get over it. You move on. Other people are suffering. So it was depression, and depression results in a lot of things. So, perfectionism and things like that.
Yes.
So when I wrote this book, I decided it's not just emotional in the form of I'm sad, feel sorry for me. It's more of like my anger came out.
Yeah.
My frustration, my beliefs, the things that I was peeling apart and saying, I'm not okay with this. And I don't know if you're okay, but I was going to try to find, like I wrote it on a page, God is a Woman. I don't know if you've
Tell me what page?
200.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, when you say God is a woman out loud, that angers people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm saying this, and I don't care. It's not like I'm attacking anyone. I'm not being violent. If we can say God is a man, why can't we say God is a woman? There's no harm in that. And I said, I found my worth, and this time I decided to fall madly in love with me, not him.
Yeah.
So I refer to God as her. That makes me feel better. And I wrote, this is the deconstruction section. My soul is not for sale. It is not for bargaining or debate. Vultures are always circling. page 191.
Yeah. Wow.
And then 189, spiritual predator, someone who tries to manipulate your spiritual journey, bypass your pain with scripture and prayer, and control the outcome of your soul.
Yeah.
I mean, I was angry. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to say what I'm thinking, and I'm going to put it on the page. And then
Yeah.
I was going to burn it.
Yeah.
And I never burned it. And then the fact that I actually published it, you were going to talk about fear. I mean, I was having an anxiety attack.
Right.
Because I'm like, what's going to happen? Well, you know
Yeah.
what happened is I have had so many messages and texts from people telling me, oh my gosh, you are saying everything that I've ever felt. I've gotten
Right.
texts from therapists telling me they're giving my book to their patients who are chronically depressed and suicidal. I got one
Right.
the other day. And they're sharing my book with these people because people feel these things, but they're afraid to say them.
Yes.
And so I said them to save my own life. And my why was and still is and always has been to give people hope and save people's lives by saying what needs to be said.
Yes.
And you can do that without harming people. I mean, I just said all those things, and I wasn't calling anyone any names or saying hateful things. I was just saying, you know what? Here's how I feel.
Yeah. And I love that because, and I've said this before on other podcasts, if you read God is a Woman and you feel some kind of way, I use the word trigger. If that's a trigger for you, well, you better send Andrea a message saying, thank you. Thank you. Because something is coming up in you for the purposes of healing. So, Andrea, the fact that you stepped into this book and said a lot of things that, I mean, I haven't, to be fully transparent, I know I've said this to you, but fully transparent to the listeners, I haven't gone through the whole book yet. I just got it 2 days ago. And I'm like, holy smokes, like, there's a lot of stuff that the way you have worded it is so healing. And I get to look at, oh, okay, what is my perspective on that? Can I, and this is why I say at the beginning of this recording, is that step into the podcast, step into listening with beginner's mindset and from a place of curiosity, because that's where the learning comes from. If you're stepping in going, oh, I know all this already, there's nothing for you to learn, and what's the point? Like, you know it all. You know it all. So thank you for sharing these words and giving and permissioning others to do the same. That's what I'm hearing when people are sending you texts and sending you, and having you on their podcast, is because you are giving people permission to do exactly what you did. Find healing from it.
Yeah. Use your voice.
Yeah.
I start with writing if you have to. And make a mess. And make a big, big mess. And then make a bigger mess. And then keep it a mess. And then it's very transformative.
It is. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you have done and what you're doing and what you're going to do. I'm glad that you are here and that you were able to share this message.
And I appreciate you having me on here and letting me share my story and my stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Coming Back to Love, the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please make sure to click the link in the description to take you to the full video episode on our YouTube channel. If you absolutely love what we're about, please follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review. For more inspiration and resources, visit my website at theklwprojectgroup.com, where you'll find all the ways you can connect with me. I would love to hear your suggestions for topics, questions, and future guests you'd like to hear from to support your coming back to love journey. In the meantime, have an inspiring rest of your day.